Hi, everyone. It's Pastor Dan with Uplifting Thoughts again for today. And I have a question for you. Have you ever faced an enormous task and you didn't have the tools or the means to accomplish it? Maybe you were facing something that exceeded your abilities or expectations. Perhaps you were given more responsibility at work with no pay increase and wondered, how will you make it? Or maybe a loved one is struggling with addiction and you feel helpless in the face of its power over them. When we face those kinds of monumental situations, we're like sitting at a deep well with no bucket in sight. Today, I want us to listen to the conversation between Jesus and the woman at the well. We can learn a lot about real life situations by listening to Jesus. Feeling hopeless or helpless in the face of something too large happens more often than we like to admit, such as when we see the suffering of people within our communities, or we see children being abused, or vulnerable adults without adequate food and health care. Even though we may not be personally involved, we often feel like we don't have what it takes to make a difference. It's like sitting at a deep well with no bucket in sight. That's what the woman at the well said to Jesus when he asked her for a drink. John chapter 4, verse 11. Sir, you sit by this deep well, a thirsty man, without a bucket in sight. The Gospel of John reveals the real identity of Jesus to us through the stories of Jesus. Here is Jesus, the Word of God, God made flesh and lived among us, sharing the good news of God's love in a real world setting. And in each of the stories in the Gospel of John, something stands in the way of recognizing who Jesus is. And each person who's talking with Jesus listens only to the literal words he says and cannot see the deeper spiritual meaning that John wants us all to understand. Remember Nicodemus in John 3, verse 4? Nicodemus asks, how can a person enter back into the womb and be born again? He's standing next to Jesus, the one who brings us new birth. And here with the woman at the well, Jesus is talking about spiritual sustenance that he calls the living water. So the water he gives doesn't require a bucket. We just have to receive it from Jesus by faith. Even though Jesus knows all about this woman, including her weaknesses, he still gives her living water. He still invites her into a new relationship with God that impacts her daily life. And here's the thing. Jesus will do the same for us. Jesus always stands beside us. Let me say that again. Jesus always stands beside you and me. He sits at our deepest well and places himself next to us so that when we face these enormous tasks, or whenever we're in a hopeless situation with no bucket in sight, we can pray the prayer the woman prayed. It can be our prayer. John 4, verse 15. Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water again. That prayer is answered even before it's on our lips. Do you see? As you stand at your deepest well with no bucket in sight, remember the words of Jesus in verse 10. If you knew who it is that you're saying, give me a drink, you would have asked and he would have given you living water. Just what we need whenever we're facing an enormous task. So remember, you're not alone. Jesus is with you today. Hey, thanks for listening. Have a great day.